Hey guys, it's your girl Leslie. Today we are going to read chapter 3 of Jeff the Killer Love Story Not Expected. I'm literally just scrolling down trying to find chapter 3. This, I think I went ahead. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go back. Anyways, guys, hey guys, anyways, I am super sorry that I had to go away for a day. I posted a new like, so don't worry, guys, I did not miss out on that. And I just probably posted, as you guys can see, Jeff the Killer Love Story Not Expected Chapter 2. And I hope you guys like it. Please watch and please subscribe. And I might post live, so yeah. You post live. And whoever the first one who comments or anyone, I will give a shout out to. Whoever follows me on Musical.ly or follows me on Like or Cheese or subscribe, or unlike me, I will give you a shout out. Or I will give 3 or 2 or 1 shout out. Depends how many comments I have, and make them positive, because if you're negative, no for you. But anyways, guys, in the description, I'm gonna tell y'all guys where y'all guys can follow me and my username. Anyways, guys, let's continue with the story. I wasted 2 minutes of your time, so let's continue. Before we start, my AC's on. Yes, you can hear it. I'm gonna turn it off in the middle of it. Oh, and I mustn't forget, I am super sorry about the pictures. I'm going to post them right after. Do not worry, and I'm going to try to remember because it's hard to edit, guys. Anyways, let's continue with the story. Anyways, chapter 3. Where we go from here. Jesse awoke, confused and unsure about what had happened the night before. A searing pain coming from her neck. She tried to touch it and swiftly remembered that someone had attempted to strangle her the night before, preventing her from attempting to place her fingers on it in case it still stung. A chill ran down her body as she released that her covers weren't on her at all and were in fact laying on the floor, by where her feet were dangling. Her drowsy interior prevented from sitting up. Bending down and picking up the covers up, but she wished her low amount of energy would allow her to do so. She was really cold. She peeked at her beside table and noticed that her lamp was on, even though it was morning. She always remembered to turn it off before she went off to sleep. Even if she had spent most of the night reading up on one of her murder case studies, suddenly the memory of her turning it on the night before to glance at Jeff's face came back to her, and she had released that she never turned it off. After that, because of Jeff's sudden outburst causing her to render unconscious. The theory that everything that happened to her that night was a dream couldn't even be considered. It had happened. She had met a murderer. She had just barely escaped death. She held the back of her neck, com- compl- contemplating, sorry guys, that is a confusing word, why Jeff had gotten so infuriated so fast. He had mentioned that he didn't know what she was, which she didn't understand. When she researched Jeff the Killer's case, she hadn't read anything about him being delusional, insane, or anything along those lines. So that couldn't explain what he meant. She was clearly just a normal girl, so why was he questioning that? The feeling of Jeff's strong hands could still be felt on her chocolate-colored throat. He clearly had a vast knowledge of strangling people because he clearly hadn't laid his hands on her to kill her, but to knock her out. She knew that if he wanted her dead, she would have been dead by then, even if he was slightly hesitant about killing her before that point. Only someone with a huge amount of experience could be able to knock her out that quickly and carefully. The thought sent a shiver up Jesse's spine. The digital alarm clock next to the drowsy teen had said that it was 7:17 a.m. Only half an hour before Anthony gets here, she whispered to herself, a moan in her voice from the fact that she actually had to get up. Anthony. Anthony, her classmate and best friend, was also her next door neighbor. He picked her up every day before school and made sure that she made it there safely. He claimed that the reason he did it, but the real reason, was so that he could spend time with her before school, even if it was just 20 minutes of walking and speaking about travel things. Over the years that they had known each other, he had become a big brother figure to her. Since 8 years ago, when they met back in primary school, despite them being the same age, he had always been more responsible and mature than Jesse and he always thought things through more carefully than she had, helping her not make mistakes so easily, which made him a perfect candidate for her protective older sibling who took care of her in the place of a brother or sister she never had. Before I continue, sorry guys, my eye is really killing me, but I'm only doing this for you guys, so let's continue. Let me get comfortable, I guess. Okay. The teen rose from her bed and wiped her eyes of the dust that had formed while she had slept. She stared at her uniform with hatred, as any ordinary teenager would on a Monday morning before getting ready to drag themselves to an institute of captivity that they would have to spend 5 days a week inside. trapped and prevented from having any contact with the outside world. She was going to have to go about her normal day, school day, not mentioning Jeff to anyone. Not that she thought anyone would believe her anyway. She had to just forget it and move on. Mm-hmm. I can't believe you didn't watch Henry's new video yesterday. It was so funny. Walking next to a laughing Jessie, who was wearing a white collared shirt tucked into a black pencil skirt, was a tall, brown-haired boy with slim glasses and white-colored shirt tucked into black trousers, which would which slightly showed off his slender legs. These two may have been in 12th year, but for their school, the rules on uniform never changed for them. They were still forced to wear the same outfits as the younger years for another 2 years and mandatory studying. The teachers explained that it was to do with equality in the year groups. But they both just thought that school hated them and they're being mean, which was very unlikely, but it was better than actually believing them. As most school kids thought, I know Anthony, but I ended up watching the news instead and just forgot. Jessie replied with a yawn and to show how tired she was. Oh, anything interesting? Jessie knew that Anthony meant by that was did anything did any recent murders happen? However, he didn't want to ask that out loud in case anyone passing heard and thought that they were very strange kids. Not that this statement wasn't true, but the whole wood didn't know, didn't need to know. He was very supportive of Jessie's obsession with murder, but he never judged her on it or told her to stop researching them. He didn't have the power over her to do that, even if he thinks of himself as her older sibling. Besides, whatever makes her happy was good enough for him. Well, she remembered the helicopter boy who was killed after the crash and that the police were sure that it was Jeff the Killer who had done it. The same Jeff the Killer that attacked her that night before. She grew tense and thought about the events of last night, meeting Jeff and barely escaping death. She knew that she had to act normal and pretend that yesterday didn't happen. But it was already going difficult. The police think that Jeff the Killer's in England. Anthony's face dropped. Are you serious? The young girl nodded hesitantly. Why do you think that? The helicopter pilot was murdered and it was Jeff's signature method. You know, the burnout eyelids and the smile thing. Jessie used her fingers to show the motion of her carving a smile on her face so that Anthony knew that she was talking about it. Could be a copycat killer, but that doesn't explain the helicopter. Also, it happened at Gagwit Twits. There we go. Oh, Anthony sighed. So we're safe for now, huh? Well, not really. He's already in Oxford, so Jessie thought to herself. But she could never tell Anthony that. She could already tell that the day wasn't going to be easy. If she had to keep lying about her knowledge, everyone at school would be talking about Jeff. So that what was she going to do? Even though Jessie hated gossip with a passion, she couldn't help but get sucked into it if it involved the killer. This wasn't going to be easy. Jess, Anthony, wait up! The two students turned around to see a brunette girl running towards them wearing a white collared shirt with, just like the other two, tucked into trousers with a huge bright smile on her face, which was contagious and caught onto Jessie. Sally, hey! Jessie waved back at the girl, trying not to think about her issue for now. Anthony joined her and waved less and Wesley. That is a weird pronunciation, but I tried. But joyfully enough to let the girl know that he welcomed her to their walk to school. When the girl drew near to the two, she instantly hugged them both individually and asked them cheerfully, "How's it going?" "Okay," Jessie replied. "I'm guessing you also watched Peter PewDie's new video yesterday too." "Nah, I was watching Cinnamon Toast Ken play at the new Walking Dead DLC. It's pretty good." The group of teens seemed The group of teens continued to walk and talk about their ordinary topics of discussion, which were mainly various YouTubers or new games that were coming out that they were desperate to buy. Jessie was finding it easier and easier to keep quiet about Jeff visiting her last night. As the conversation went by, she thought that maybe if she stuck with Sally, who always averted the conversation to school or gaming, she would be okay for at least a day, for the day at least. "Oh, by the way, Jess, did you hear the news?" Sally asked, her voice suddenly dull and seriously toned. Jessie swallowed her own saliva. The normal conversation came to an end yet again. She knew that her friend must have been talking about. "You mean about the helicopter pilot?" she asked reluctantly. "What? No, I mean about the girl that was killed near the pub on St. Clement Street last night." Josie and Anthony both looked surprised at the news, indicating that they had no idea about this information. Josie didn't have time that morning to watch any local news as anyway, always, so she couldn't have known about that. And Anthony didn't watch the news in general. He couldn't have known about it either. "Last night?" she asked. "How did she die?" "She was stabbed to death." "I thought you would have known about that. You always watch the news in the morning," Sully pointed out. "She wasn't killed Jeff's signature way. Then maybe it wasn't Jeff." Jessie wondered. Although the that only meant that there were another serial killer in the area that she had to worry too. "Man, English sucks," Sally moaned as she leaned her head on her desk, not caring if the teacher noticed her or not, which he didn't. Oh, guys, pause there. Give me a second. Now it's just uncomfortable. It's just cold now. Okay. Okay, there we go. Ow. Okay, continuing. Uh, Anthony and Jessie had excuse me, partnered up to discuss certain aspects of a poem that their English teacher had given them. The whole class had been asked to do this task as well, but most of them were just social socializing and going off topic like they usually did. This specific class were better at cramming than desking and moderation although their teacher didn't seem to notice. Ignorance is bliss after all. You just hate our teacher. English is fun otherwise. Anthony skimmed through the poem and began to highlight different languages devices while Sally sat there complaining about the class, not caring that the teacher was quite close to them. She had the tenacity to not care what others thought of her, which resulted in her saying whatever came into her head. This irritated Anthony slightly, but Jessie didn't seem to mind it. In fact, she actually envied that about her. She only wished that she could be less self-confident so she could do that too. Jessie couldn't concentrate at all. Not that was unusual for during a class as dull as English. All she could think about was how close to death she had come the night before. She had actually met one of the most well-known serial killers on the planet and was still alive to say that she had. Even though she was determined not to do that, she couldn't comprehend why had she sorry guys, I'm confusing my own words here. Why she had survived the encounter either. He could have easily killed her and not thought anything of it. Why didn't he? Jessie? The daydreamer jolted and looked at her friends, who were both staring at her with cat-like eyes. You okay? You're usually really into poem analyzing, since you can bullshit your way through it. Anthony pointed out, leaning his head on his hand. The girl hadn't realized how obvious she was making it that she was troubled. She had to quickly emphasize that she was alright so as not to worry her friends. Yeah, I'm just tired, that's all. Sally glanced to her side and back at Jessie. Hey Jessie, are you friends with John Thompson? John Thompson was the boy in Jessie's class that she only spoken to a few times in the past year. She didn't really notice him around, but he seemed like a nice enough guy, even if she thought that he had nothing in common. They had nothing in common. Jessie's year group were divided into cliques, and Jessie and her friends were classed as geeks. Not the kind of geeks that were beaten up, but the kind that were avoided and not spoken to by the cool kids. And John's friends were classed as popular, so she really never spoke to him. Although he wasn't an egomaniac like some of his other popular friends were. But he was still in a completely different world to Jessie, Anthony, and Sally. No, why? She asked, pulling a why would I be face. Well, he's looking at you right now. Jessie instantly peeked to her left and saw the boy staring at her, his large, seemingly sapphire eyes fixated on her. As soon as she met eyes with him, her heartbeat stopped and couldn't take her eyes off his. The feeling from the night before was coming back to her, increasing heart rate, the need to hurt. It was all flowing back into her body. It was like nothing she had ever felt before, and she couldn't explain it. She swiftly looked away from John and grabbed her chest, beginning to gently paint and sweat lightly. Her dark face also turned red. Jessie, you okay? Sally grabbed her shoulder, giving her unneeded support. She couldn't respond. She couldn't speak because of her jagged breathing and couldn't even look at her friends. Her eyes were shut as she tried to calm herself down, and her head was telling herself that she was in class and do not make a scene, going back to her carrying off what others thought of her. All she could do was gasp for air and slightly enjoy the shiver going up her spine. This feeling was so confusing. It was painful yet satisfying at the same time, but desperate, almost as if she needed something but couldn't reach it. What was this feeling? She had these images in her head, these urges that were suddenly appearing, almost as out of nowhere. She felt the need to go up to John and beat him with something, maybe a chair, watching him struggle underneath it and beg for help. That would never come. To see the the crimson liquid pour out of him and splatter all over the place, on the wall, the wooden floor, the ceiling, if it could reach that high. The image sent a vibrant signal up Jessie's body, from her feet to the top of her head. Jessie! Anthony got up to his feet and moved closer to his friend, alerting his fellow classmates and teacher. John even stood up with concern. Jessie's eyes were gradually shutting, and she felt so sleepy all of a sudden, as if she just woken up from a deep sleep and wasn't ready to face the day yet. The feeling was fading slowly, erasing the violent images from inside her mind. All she could think about now was that students were gathering around her, and she was clearly causing a scene even though she didn't want to. Her vision was becoming blurry and unclear. The voices were calling out to her, but she couldn't answer them. Jessie? Jess! Give her some room. What's wrong with her? Did she faint? Jessie! The last thought in her head, the last thing she thought before drifting off into her plain and entertainment dream land was, Jeff. I don't know what the fuck happened. Jeff, with his hoodie up and a filthy alleyway covered in garbage, Oh, almost forgot. Jeff's point of view. Jeff, with his hoodie up and in a filthy alleyway covered in garbage and stray cats, cute to look at but probably riddling with diseases, was on his mobile phone, not seeming to be too happy. I I just suddenly could fucking kill her. I don't know how or why, and it's pissing me off. The voice of Ben was sinking through the phone, sounding as puzzled as his murderous friend was. That's weird. You only been there a couple of days. You already fucked up. So I think that's kind of funny. Shut up. The aggression in Jeff's voice made Ben flinch over the phone. He hadn't heard Jeff sound this frustrated in a long time, and it was actually causing him to wonder whether him being out of the country was a good idea or not. Who is this girl anyway? He asked, trying to keep Jeff calm and making him actually come contemplate the situation rather than just freaking out about it. She said her name was Jessie Walker, Jeff muttered, but, not sure why he even remembered that fact. Is she one of us? Jeff growled, knowing that he thought the exact same thing and was wrong. No, she's just a human girl. Ben took another moment to contemplate the situation, leaving a silence to levitate through the call. When he finished thinking, he responded back to his friend with a calm tone. Calm tone. I think you should keep an eye on her, just to make sure. See what she's like. You already know where she lives and her name, so the rest is easy. You never know. She might be one of us all after all. Jeff twisted his body out to look towards the busy street beyond the alley, watching cars go by and people just ignoring the hidden area. No wonder he hadn't been caught yet. People were too idiotic to even attempt to look for him in dirty, abandoned places such as that. Good idea. Guys, that is the end of chapter 3. I'm probably gonna read chapter 4 right now. So, reading chapter 4. Because, 2 chapters is better than 1. So, let's continue. Give me a second, I gotta upload to chapter 4. Jeff declared not expected chapter 4. Leaning on others. Before we start this chapter, wow. Comment down below how you feel. Like how was your day and stuff, and what you think about the story. I need views, people. I'm just kidding. I'm not a beggar. But before I continue, please leave a big thumbs up. I'm waiting, and then I'll continue the story. Okay. After this video, I'm probably gonna be watching YouTube after this. So, make sure to go check out NJ Station. He is really, really awesome. And he really just posted a video like a long time ago. I'm not really sure. But please go check him out. He's really awesome. And he's really good with his videos. And remember, please give him a big thumbs up. He's awesome. Like, guys, you should literally look at his subscription. He's so freaking awesome. And he's just real good. And if you want, like, comedy, you can go to David Lopez's channel. Oh my gosh. Funny. Anything scary, he turns it into funniness. Freaking laughter and comedy. Anyways, let me continue with chapter 4. Again, leaning on others. Jessie's large brown eyes slowly opened, only seeing the white ceiling above her. She thought that she knew the ceiling, but couldn't remember in what circumstances she had come across it, or when she had laid her eyes upon it. All she could remember was the circumstances weren't the best, and she felt slightly ill when it happened. She remembered that because she recalled her counting the tiles on the ceiling when about to throw up. Jessie? The girl turned her head and laid her full, lunning eyes on Anthony, looking worried and wide-eyed. A look that Jessie saw on his face softened. Since she had a habit of doing idiotic things that caused the older brother and her friend to come racing to save the day, as soon as she saw him, she rose groggily and wiped her eyes, yawning yet again, only now releasing how tired she actually was, and how she needed the nap that she just had, considering everything that had happened to her the night before. It wasn't too surprising. "Anthony, where am I?" she asked, sounding slightly out of it, as if she just started the day once again. "You're in the medical room. You fainted a half an hour ago. Thank God you're up." Anthony leaned forward and held his temporarily bedridden friend tightly, surprising her. Anthony wasn't the affectionate type normally. In fact, he was what they call the anime world and Sundere. That's the way of pronouncing, but I tried. Which meant that he acted cruel and scolding most of the time, but actually very sweet and kind. But he hardly showed that side of himself. So when he hugged Jessie wailingly, which almost never happened, it always shocked her. Not that she didn't like it or anything. It was nice to receive a hug every now and then. Anthony? She hugged the hug giver jolted and pushed himself back, blushing rapidly. Uh, sorry, I just, He now covered his mouth in embarrassment, confusing the teen in the bed. "I'm just glad you're okay." He avoided eye contact with the girl in front of him. He hated when she saw him like that, affectionate with and losing his cool. It wasn't like him to do that. But when it came to Jessie's safety, he couldn't help it. It just happened. Jessie couldn't help but smile at her friend's concern. "Thanks. Where's Sal? And why aren't you in class, Brainiac?" I tried again. Anthony's red face slowly drifted back to its usually creamy colored. Oh, I just lost. What the heck? Sorry, guys. My thing just went down on me. Just went down. Down. Um, okay, now I found it. Anthony's red face slowly drifted back to its usually creamy color. Jesse could keep him calm and send his emotions running in a course of a minute. It was one of those things what he found distressing about being her best friend, but he just sucked it up and dealt with it. The nurse said that only one friend could stay with you here, so she let me come in, which Sal was pissed, by the way, but they said I could only stay here from one period. And if you weren't awake by then, that they'd send you to the hospital and call your parents. Jesse's heart skipped a beat. They didn't call them, right? They didn't call him, right? She grabbed Anthony's hand suddenly, which were resting on the bed, causing him to go pink a little. No. Jessie let go of her best friend's hand and sighed. Thank God. Anthony's slick eyes watched Jessie with concern. He had never understood why she hated talking to her parents so much, or grew anxious even when their names were mentioned. He thought that being away from your parents was supposed to make you miss them and want to talk to them, even more than usual. But in Jessie's case, she always hesitant to speak to her mother or father. Her independence was overwhelming. Jessie? He grabbed her attention. Do you want to come over to mine house for dinner tonight? I asked I asked my mom to cook an extra plate for you. Jesse's spirit was lifted when she heard this. Going to Anthony's place for dinner always fun, and his mother really knew how to cook. She always went home feeling overly full to the point of feeling sick, but it was always worth it for delicious cooking. But since, since she lived right next door to him, but it was no problem. She could drag herself back home afterwards without an issue. Yeah, what's your mom cooking this time? Her smile was consciously to Anthony. I think she said something about ribs. Sounds good. I haven't had ribs in ages. Seeing Jessie smiling and happy was enough for Anthony to know that she was all right for now. But he had a dreaded feeling that the reason she fainted was going to do with stress of her parents not being home and having her to take care of the house herself while studying for exams, as if that wasn't hard enough for her. He tried to help as much as he could by keeping her safe, making sure that she didn't get sick too often, and just flat out looking out for her. But she hardly let him do anything for her. She hated letting other people help her, and really hated having her independence taken away. Jessie, you can come over more often if you want, he stated. You're always welcome. Mom loves it when you come over, and without your parents around. Anthony had hit a touchy subject, and he knew it. He instantly realized as soon as he said it, and as soon as he saw Jesse's upset face. Now upset face. I mean, you don't have to be alone all the time. You can always come over as much as you want. And Mom can Anthony, she interrupted. I'm fine. I think I appreciate it, but I'm fine. The glasses wearing teen avoided looking at the girl in front of him out of self-irritation. He knew that Jessie hated talking about her parents, but he brought it up anyway, accidentally. He needed to watch what he said next time in case he upset her even further. Okay. Jessie put on a smile after releasing that she just had yelled at her best friend and joyfully said, I'll come over for today though. I'd rather eat your mom's cooking than that than instant ramen or a microwave crap that I normally have for dinner anyway. Anthony looked up and smiled back, still concerned, even if even with the smile on his face. Yeah. Thanks, nurse. Jessie exited the medical room, feeling much more alive and less sleepy than before. It was now the end of the day, and Jessie had said to Anthony before he left to go back to class that she would meet him at the gates with Sally and that they would head to his house together. The ordinary plan, except for the part where she went to his house and not her own. Just because she was sick didn't mean that she would have to change her normal schedule and not seeing her friends. Since she fainted in English, she had gone to skip classes for a day. This might also have been because she had told the nurse that she didn't want to go home, but wasn't well enough to go back to class. The nurse couldn't really do anything, so she just let her rest as long as she wanted and let her teachers know. She jogged down the hallway as if as if she hadn't fainted hours before, trying to hurry so that she could taste Anthony's mother delicious cooking as soon as possible, stopping for a brief moment every now and then to say hi to various people. She may have been a geek in the eyes of her classmates, but she was one of the only well-liked geeks out of her friends and fellow geeky people in the establishment. So she socialized with the other students the most. A huge amount of the pupils pupils were asking about what happened, and she was forced to calm their concern by telling them that she was okay, but trying to be quick and it so she could hurry to get to Anthony and Sally. They hated it when she kept them waiting, but they would be more lenient because of what happened. She had plenty of time to contemplate the events of earlier. While she was laying on the medical room, she was feeling that she kept getting hadn't appeared again since the morning. The morning. She had wondered if it was just a part of her puberty that she hadn't gone through yet, but then she realized this idea was ridiculous. This feeling that was making her want to hurt others and feel a strange pleasurable sensation thinking about it, there was no explanation for it other than frustration or stress. I just need to rest. I'll sleep early tonight It wouldn't happen. It won't happen again, she thought to herself. Jessie? The girl jumped. When she turned around to see who had called her name, it turned out to be someone she really didn't want to talk to. John Thompson was stood in front of their math classroom, one hand on the side of the door and other on his waist. I guess you're feeling better then, he asked, smiling. Jessie simply nodded. She wanted to ask why this guy was this guy was staring her at her during class, but she didn't feel as though she really had time. Getting to her friends, there. Sorry guys, my voice is getting cranky. I meant was more important. Also, she noticed that the feeling wasn't coming back. She remembered thinking that it was so strange that she had only felt that feeling while being handled by Jeff and John, and having John looking at her from across the room. It must have been a fluke. If you're looking for Anthony and Sally, they headed towards the gate a minute ago. Thanks. She knew that they would have walked towards the gate already, but she still felt the need to thank John for his concern. She turned to walk away when John stopped her with his words. Jessie, are you and Anthony dating? She immediately turned red and turned towards the brunette, not sure why he was asking this or how he got that impression. No, we're best friends. John noticed her embarrassment and chuckled underneath his breath. Why? Another laugh escaped from John's mouth, as he moved closer and closer to Jessie, stopping half a meter away from her, hands now in his trouser pockets. Well, I was just wondering if you have a boyfriend. Jessie's face flushed red. She had never been asked something this personal by someone that she had barely talked to in her life before. John seemed awfully curious for a boy in her class that she barely knew. Boys were never a priority for Jessie. Only school and her friends and murder research mattered to her. She didn't have time to think about getting a boyfriend. Why do you want to know that? She asked hesitantly. John's cheek was slightly pink as he placed his hand behind his head and scratched as as a reflex. Well, I was wondering if you wanna, go on a date with me or something. Jessie froze. It was more because of a shock than anything. She had hardly even talked to John since she had entered the school and was asking her out on a date. Uh, I, you don't have to decide right now. I can wait for a reply. The confessing teen, leaned into Jessie's ear, causing her to go even redder, and whispered softly, promise not to tell anyone? The bump, the dump, the bump, the, the feeling is back. A fantasy appeared in Jessie's mind. She craved for the adrenaline rush that could help her to push John to the ground and place her soft hands around his large neck. The feeling of her hands cutting the circulation of air in his body. Being on top of him, hearing his silent screams as he choked to death, Jessie's breathing increased. as her body became hot. She could hear her heart beat even more loudly than the talking of students around her, pulsing through her eardrums. Unfortunately, John noticed immediately. He pulled away and got a look at her reddened, sweating, panting face and large brown eyes staring up at him, imagining all of the violent acts that she could do to him. And he blushed. Jesse? The dazzled female suddenly snapped out of it and realized what kind of face she must have been making. Embarrassment flooded her mind and body, causing her to turn the other way, sprint as fast as she could, and yell out, "I have to go, sorry!" He was gobsmacked. I did. Did I? Turn her on? Just by whispering in her ear? He thought as he scratched his face softly. Her body must be sensitive. That face she was making, shit. She's so fucking cute. Oh, sorry guys. Got a new thing. Anyways, Jeff stood outside of the school window in a deserted area covered in shrubbery and trees, preventing anyone from seeing him, stood there. Even though there was no one to see him anyway, he just has kept witnessed the scene between John and Jesse. He now knew everything that he needed to know about her, and his anger had subsided for now. He always found out better when he knew that was happening rather than feeling obvious. The reason he couldn't kill Jessie the night was because she was like him. She was right. She didn't know it. She just didn't know it. Technically, Ben was also right, but he wasn't going to acknowledge that. Why would he? He figured it out first. After all, she was going through the same thing that he had when he was turning into a killer. She was developing feelings of wanting to kill, just like he had. It was all coming together. Interesting. She wants to kill that brown-haired guy. Jeff chuckled sinisterly. So interesting. Guys, that is chapter 5. The pictures are on there right now. Pew, pew, and pew. Well, bye guys. See y'all later. Actually, y'all might